Good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight with Ian Haslam. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday evening. Our top story. Cumbrian taxi driver Derek Bird killed 12 people. Now 15 years on, a new documentary hears from those who survived England's biggest mass shooting.
It was just surreal that I had a pair of barrels just there.
Also on the programme tonight, Merseyside police admit failings and workload pressures left a dangerous sexual predator free to snatch a 6-year-old girl off the streets. In memory of Uncle Andy, 80 years after 31 US servicemen died on a Manx hillside, one family returns to pay their respects.
We've got cards from Canada, America, Australia.
Happy 18th birthday, Zach. Find out how North West Tonight viewers help make his day.
And after a pretty decent day today, most places should see some sunshine over the next few days, with the potential for our temperatures to rise into next week. A full forecast coming up shortly.
It was England's worst mass shooting. Taxi driver Derek Bird's murderous trip down the Cumbrian coast 15 years ago claimed 12 lives, injured 12 others and destroyed the lives of many more. No one knows what led Bird, known as a sociable, outgoing man, to arm himself with a rifle and a shotgun and set off that day, picking out random victims in the towns and villages of West Cumbria. The horror began in the early hours of June the 2nd, when he shot his twin brother David dead at 10:30. He then attacked a taxi rank in Whitehaven and then, as police scrambled to respond, drove south through Egremont and Gosforth, taking more lives. At around 11:30, he claimed his final 2 victims in the village of Seascale before driving to a remote wooded area near to the village of Boot, where he took his own life. Now, a new documentary, I Survived a Mass Shooting, tells the story of some of those at the centre of this story, like pub landlord Harry Berger, who came face to face with Bird, and Barry Robinson, whose twin sister Jane was killed.
Drove into Seascale, just driving under the bridge, and the car came towards me. I just saw the tiger stripes on the bottom of the door and knew that was a taxi. So I just thought, oh, I can't be bothered to argue with them. So I just reversed up out of the tunnel, let him come through. He stopped by the car. He wound down his window, I wound down mine. He then picked up the gun and he pointed a shotgun at me. But it was just surreal that I had a pair of barrels just there. And I just turned around to him and I said, "You don't want to do that. It's not a good thing to do." And he fired. First shot took away those 2 fingers, straight into my hand. And I instinctively put my arm up and said a few words to him, which I'm not going to say, and he fired again, and then drove off.
Suddenly a whole lot of police cars came by, hooting like mad. I thought, what's on? And then a helicopter came so quickly and low, it nearly touched, I thought it was going to touch the hotel bottom windows. But it went on. I thought, what on earth is going on? Cheerful, active, hard-working, you know, and she loved animals and she loved birds. And she was fond of children. She got this new job with Betterware, with catalogues, cleaning stuff, you know. And whether she was handing people the catalogues through the letterbox or collecting them, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, she'd been to one house, and suddenly this wretched car had landed up and beckoned to her. And she thought it was someone wanting to know the way, so she immediately walked over and was shot twice. Then and then.
The medics were fantastic from our local surgery. They appeared, they grabbed a bag full of stuff and they appeared and they started to treat me as best they could. They had to get me out of the car, and they didn't have a stretcher, so they used a ladder. They took me into a shop on the corner. There was an enormous amount of bleeding. 45 minutes on the ground, and then the Great North Air Ambulance arrived. And when the air ambulance arrived and took me away, all of a sudden, these people left there going, what's just happened? You know, their lives had changed.
I dream about her such a lot. She comes into my dreams an awful lot. The last 2 years particularly. And then you have to wake up and then you suddenly think, oh, it's back to square one. You know, that it's just been a dream. She's not here.
Very sad indeed. It's hard to believe it's 15 years ago. And you can see more on that story in the documentary I Survived a Mass Shooting, which is now available on the BBC iPlayer. Well, a BBC investigation has found that police failings and workload pressures left a dangerous sexual predator from Liverpool free to snatch a 6-year-old girl from the streets. Lewis Jones sexually assaulted his victim in Manchester in 2022. Well, Andy Gill is at Merseyside Police Headquarters for us now. Andy, just tell us more about this, about Lewis Jones and what he did.
Well, Ian, this story starts in mid-2020 when Merseyside police were investigating Lewis Jones for grooming and sexually abusing a vulnerable young girl by pretending he was 14. The girl, who was from Cheshire, said she met a much older man at a station in Liverpool. Jones was interviewed but then released under investigation. There were no bail conditions. In August 2022, Jones grabbed a 6-year-old girl who was playing near woods at Droylsden in Manchester and sexually assaulted her. Jones's father recognised him from CCTV that Greater Manchester Police put out and took him to a police station. In 2023, Jones admitted both the Manchester and the Merseyside offences at court and was jailed for life with a minimum of 12 years.
So, Andy, why was Lewis Jones able to carry out the assault on the girl in Manchester?
Well, there are 18 months between the start of the Merseyside investigation and when Jones grabbed that girl off the streets in Manchester. A review by Merseyside police found there'd been a number of delays. For example, a detective constable held onto a file when they were moved from the grooming inquiry to help with the workload in another department. And so there was a delay in gathering things like social media and phone data. Nobody informed senior detectives about the delay as they should have done. The police watchdog decided no individual officers should face disciplinary hearings on this. At the trial, the judge said that if Jones had been charged when he should have been, he would not have been at liberty to abduct the 6-year-old. Merseyside police told the BBC they've made extensive changes to the way they investigate crimes like this, including recruiting more staff.
Andy Gill, thank you very much for joining us there. Andy Gill, our Merseyside reporter. Let's take a look at some of today's other news now. And firefighters wearing hazmat suits have been tackling a chemical leak in Oldham. Thick orange smoke was filmed coming from a tanker lorry at an industrial site on West End Street at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. The public are being urged to avoid the area, and local residents have been told to keep their doors and windows shut. 5 fire crews and a number of ambulances equipped to deal with chemical incidents were also sent to the scene. Older motorists could be required to pass eye tests to keep their driving licence. It comes after a Lancashire coroner called on the government for the compulsory test, something we reported on last week. Dr James Adderley submitted a prevention of future deaths report earlier this month after the deaths of 4 people killed in the northwest by drivers with failing eyesight. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander says it's something she's open to considering as part of the government's forthcoming road safety strategy. People who litter, light fires or leave equipment while wild camping in the Lake District could now face fines. Cumberland Council has started using the public space protection orders to tackle antisocial behaviour by so-called fly campers. The National Trust says it's having to pay for skips to clear camping equipment away and spent £1,000 clearing one site. And BBC Radio Merseyside has been hosting a debate ahead of the Runcorn and Hellsbeat by-election today. Voters will head to the polls in the Cheshire constituency on the 1st of May. The by-election has been triggered by the resignation of Mike Amesbury, who you might remember was convicted earlier this year of assaulting a constituent. And you can hear that debate on BBC Sounds. Search for Runcorn by-election debate. Hundreds of patients treated in Greater Manchester by a disgraced spinal surgeon could now have their cases reviewed by an NHS England investigation. Now, this follows a lengthy campaign by relatives and former patients of John Bradley Williamson, who worked at the Salford Royal Hospital and the Royal Manchester Children's Hospital from the mid-90s to 2012. Our health correspondent Jill Dummigan joins me now from Salford Royal. Jill, tell us a bit more about the background to this case, if you could.
Well, John Bradley Williamson was an eminent spinal surgeon, a clinical lead at Salford Royal, a one-time president of the British Scoliosis Society. But in 2015, Salford Royal sacked him after allegations of inappropriate behaviour towards a colleague. Now, around the same time, a number of his former patients said they were experiencing problems linked to his surgery after years of campaigning. Both hospitals commissioned limited reviews into his care at Salford Royal. They found 20 patients who'd suffered significant harm and 23 with misplaced spinal screws. At Manchester Children's Hospital, 13 patients were found to have been harmed, 9 significantly. He was also criticised over the death of 17-year-old Catherine O'Connor. Now, she suffered massive blood loss on the operating table, and a review into that said he'd exhibited a blatant disregard for the patient's safety.
But campaigners have been calling for further investigations, haven't they?
They're unhappy that those 2 reviews only looked at the last 5 years of his time at both hospitals. He was at Salford Royal for more than 20 years, at Manchester Children's for 17 years. They've fought for a full recall of all patients, and in February they went to Westminster to meet the Patient Safety Minister, Baroness Merron. I've now seen a letter which confirms that NHS England has set up a team to see if that full review should go ahead. They're going to start by going through the 2 existing hospital reviews. That will run until October. At that point, they will decide what happens next. Now, in a statement, Mr Williamson told us he's always strived to provide the best care for patients, and he'll cooperate with any future investigations into patient care.
OK, thanks very much, Jill. Jill Dummigan, our health correspondent, reporting for us outside at Salford Royal there this evening. Now, if you saw yesterday's programme, you'll know we started looking at the children in the care system in our region. We were talking about the fall in the number of foster carers, and because of that fall, the numbers of children in residential care homes is increasing. Now, in Warrington, the council have launched a new initiative. It's called No Wrong Door, and it's aimed at reducing the amount of time children have to stay in homes while also trying to stop them ending up there in the first place, as Isabel Fry now reports.
I went into care when I was the age of 4, and I've been through all walks of life. For me, it was one of those where when you get moved from place to place to place, you sort of think that, you know, the only person that's there for you is yourself.
As a kid who grew up in the care system, Jordan has faced a lot of judgment.
You're labelled as a naughty kid, that you've got a criminal record, that you're either going to end up behind bars or that, you know, you're going to end up dead.
He is one of many young people placed in a residential home, where around 3 to 4 children live with a few social workers while they wait to be placed with foster families. This could be years. In the last year, 89 new homes opened in our region, and now we account for 25% of all children's homes in England. That's 10% higher than any other region.
We take a lot of young people from other areas, from other local authorities, and I think that it's just an area where they're able to potentially, especially private companies, are able to open children's homes fairly cheaply.
And the impact on young people can be devastating.
Young people get moved out of their area and, you know, stripped of all those natural supportive networks and relationships and brought up to the northwest.
To try and help fix the problem, Warrington Council has introduced a scheme called No Wrong Door. It aims to keep kids in care in their local area with more modern surroundings, and the children will receive one-on-one support.
You know, we're committed to our young people. We're not going to be sending them out to other local authorities unless we have absolutely no other choice. All of the young people that come into the Lighthouse must have an onward plan. For me, residential care is not a long-term option for any young person. They deserve the chance to live in a family. They deserve the chance to live in their own family if it's safe for them to do so.
Since the scheme launched, the council has said it's had a big impact on reducing the kids in care population. Jordan joined the team to work with young people who are in a similar situation to his childhood.
I want to make a difference, and I don't want young people to feel what I felt, and I also wanted to show young people that I've been where you are. I know that it might seem dark and gloomy, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
The No Wrong Door scheme, if this was something that was in place when you were a kid, do you think it would have benefited you?
Absolutely. Having that support system is the most important thing for a young person, because without the support, they crumble. And if you don't have the support to, to say you're doing good, you can do this, and like having those people around, you lose a sense of yourself.
Isabel Fry, BBC North West Tonight, Warrington.
Well, we're going back 80 years now to April 23rd, 1945, the day 31 American servicemen boarded a flight at an airbase in Essex. They were flying to Belfast for a few days of well-earned leave, knowing that the end of the war in Europe was just days away. But sadly, they were never to reach their destination as the B-17 transport plane crashed on a mountainside in the Isle of Man, killing everyone on board. Today, on the anniversary of the tragedy of one of the men on board, the families of one of the men on board came to pay their respects. Alex Blake was there.
80 years after the worst aviation disaster in the Isle of Man's history, remnants remain on the Manx hillside. In April 1945, a Flying Fortress bomber carrying 31 American Air Force servicemen hit North Barrule, killing all on board. They were bound for a few days of leave in Northern Ireland, but never reached their destination.
Such a tragedy, these guys would have known that the end of the war in Europe was almost with us. They knew effectively they were almost home and dry, but it wasn't to be.
8 decades later, the family of one of those on board, a technician, Andy Piter, have been able to visit the site for the first time after they had planned originally to go in for the 75th anniversary in 2020, but of course that was delayed due to the COVID pandemic.
To know that life was over in an instant, unbeknownst to the men in the plane, it's beyond words. To be here and to be experiencing that with lots of great friends and family members. So it's quite humbling for all of us.
People talk about closure. I don't know if they've got closure from it, but it's certainly answered a lot of questions for them. And to be able to stand in the place where the aircraft crashed, where Andy's body probably laid in the wreck of the aircraft, it means an awful lot to them. It means a lot to me.
During the war, Andy Piter sent money from his service back to America to buy a home. While he was never able to live in that house, it has become a lasting legacy in his family.
We grew up in Andy's house, and my parents, who are 86 and 84, are still living in this house today. So this 80-year kind of thing is just, it goes beyond words, really. Maybe, we can return for the 100th, but it really means a lot to our family.
Each year, the American flag is flown at the site next to a memorial to honour all of those that lost their lives that day. Alex Blake, BBC North West Tonight, North Barrule.
As the mourning period continues for Pope Francis, staff and students at a school in North Manchester have been fondly remembering their special time with him just last year. In a rare encounter, the Pope met 50 children from St Michael's Roman Catholic High School in Moston, as Anna Jameson now reports.
A moment they'll never forget. School children from North Manchester shaking hands with the late Pope.
It was so good. We always say it was like one of the best moments ever. I still think about it now, like everyone does. We all still talk about it and stuff. It was just like once in a lifetime experience.
And it was an experience made possible by Deacon Theo from Altrincham, who trained in the Vatican City.
Some of the pupils who were on the trip unfortunately had some very sad family situations, and they had a great desire to meet the Pope, and I just thought, I wonder if I could make this happen. So I wrote explaining these sad situations to our bishop in Salford, Bishop John Arnold, who wrote down to the Pope's representative in London, got to St Peter's Square, and the security guard said, "Ah yes, St Matthew's from Manchester, come on up, and can you identify these children for me who are going to meet the Pope?" And so I was like, wow, it's actually going to happen.
And it's an experience that meant everything to 15-year-old Lacey, who 3 months earlier lost her dad, Lee, to stage 4 lung cancer.
I remember after it happened, everyone was just like, I was just so overwhelmed, and I did start crying because I thought, like, my dad, like, that was the main thing, because my dad loved the Pope, and he was like he always used to talk about him to me and be like, oh yeah, like, I wish I could beat the Pope someday.
15-year-old twins, Keir and Alex, have also recently lost their dad, Anthony.
We just got into the seats near the front, and the person brought the Pope over, and he spoke to me and him, and gave us a handshake and gave us some rosary beads.
It was just kind of weird, because it didn't really feel real.
What did your mum say?
She was crying.
Was she? Yeah. And the Pope's blessing means more now to pupils than ever.
It's obviously sad about the dad's passing, but it's also a nice memory to be able to share and say, like, Lacey, she done that, and then her dad would have always wanted her to do that. She can say, I've done it for my dad, you know. It's like a nice...
Yeah, because at the end we're just 3 kids from Moston, so it's like he didn't have to like take the time to come shake our hands and stuff like that. So I think like the fact that he did it, it shows, and it's special.
Anna Jameson, BBC North West Tonight in Moston.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we told you about Zach Hall from Sedbergh in Cumbria, who was born severely brain damaged. Doctors predicted he would die before the age of 5, but today he's celebrating his 18th birthday. His mum, Mags, was worried he wouldn't get many cards, so she asked us, North West Tonight, and our viewers for help, and that's exactly what you did, as Phil Chapman now explains.
Absolutely amazing. Can't believe you're 18.
It's a birthday Zach's mum and medical experts thought might not be possible, but today he's been welcomed into adulthood with a huge pile of 18th birthday cards. Earlier this month, Mags told us she wanted as many people as possible to join her in congratulating Zach, and they did.
It's absolutely true what they say when it needs 1,000 positives to undo 1 negative. Well, we've got 1,500 plus positives that we can sit down with Zach, read them to him, tell him how amazing he is, really celebrate the fact that he made 18 years. We never thought we'd be able to celebrate this day. In the very early days, they gave him a life expectancy of around 4 years. A very happy, special birthday today, and many more to follow from the Williams and Sanders family, from Manchester and Glossop. Even on your 18th birthday, unfortunately, you still have to have all the medication to get you through the day. We've got cards from Canada, America, Australia, hundreds of cards from local people. I mean, just so many. I've still got today's post, yesterday's post as well, so cards are still coming in.
Now all Mags needs is perhaps a bigger mantelpiece to put all Zach's cards on. Phil Chapman, BBC North West Tonight, Sedbergh.
Bigger mantelpiece. It'll need to be about 100 foot long, won't it? Our thanks to all the North West Tonight viewers who sent cards. And it's another big day today, St George's Day. And at Liverpool's St George's Hall, they were, of course, flying the flag of St George, while inside the King's representative, that's the Deputy Lord Lieutenant of Merseyside, or Lieutenant of Merseyside, Liam Hanlon, handed out citizenship certificates to 50 new Liverpool residents, although technically St George's Day isn't until next week. Apparently that's because you can't have a Saints' Day in the week after Easter Sunday. The producer Jim told me that. So officially, it's next Monday. I'm such an entertaining guy, aren't I, with my baffling facts. I'm not Roger, he's not here today. Eagle-eyed viewers will have noticed that. And you're not Kay,
No.
you're Abby. Thank you very much for joining us tonight,
Super
Abby.
subs.
Great to see you. What's the weather doing, though?
Well, it's been quite a nice day actually today, and our weather watchers have been out enjoying it as per usual. Thank you so much for sending all the weather photos in. A bit more of the same to come tomorrow, so if you do manage to capture a photo when you are out and about, please do send it in to us here at North West tonight. All the details will be popping up on the screen behind me any second now. So a very similar day to come tomorrow. It is the St George's Day flag, because whether it is or isn't, it's ending up on the weather photos for this evening. A mostly dry day to come tomorrow, sunny spells forecast, and settling down really as we head through to the end of the week. I think if anything, our weather, our temperatures will start to warm up a little bit as we do start to pull up milder air from the south. This big area of high pressure settling our weather down into next week and boosting the temperatures too. So overnight tonight, a couple of showers to start, but it will turn dry with variable cloud and clear skies. A little bit of mist and fog possible under these clearer skies, with our temperatures dropping to 4 or 5 degrees. Any mist and fog will lift first thing tomorrow morning. It's set to be a mostly dry day. The best of the sunshine around the middle part of the day. I think more cloud building as we head towards the evening. The risk of an isolated shower or two, but feeling pleasant in the sun with highs of 18 degrees.
There you go. We'll settle for that, Abby. Take a seat on the sofa. You'll be back in the late news at 10:30, as will I. Whatever you're doing, enjoy the rest of your evening. But for myself and Abby, bye for now. See you later. Well, that was...